there is a role of nuclear medicine in management of metastatic colorectal carcinoma. I shall begin the first part of my talk today. What is the role of PET-CT in colorectal cancer? We shall see whether it can characterize the tumor metabolism with the SUV max, where we shall be using FDG to study the glucose metabolism of the tumor cells. It has a role in prognostication, which Dr. Raj very well elucidated is very important. Extrahepatic disease in the metastatic setting, response assessment in neoadjuvant therapy setting, any role in follow-up, and a role probably in radiotherapy planning, which is a new arena even in the PET-CT purview. So in the initial staging, the surgeon basically wants to know the disease burden, the size of the tumor, what is the mural invasion, what is the regional, loco-regional invasion of the adjacent soft tissue. This is best provided by anatomical imaging modalities like the CT and the MRI. But what is the role of PET-CT? The role comes in characterizing the metabolic activity of the tumor. Now, multiple studies have shown that higher the SUV max, more is the metabolic activity of the tumor, and it shows more aggressive character. It means that even after curative surgery, the chances of recurrence are pretty high in this patient population. For lymph node assessment, PET-CT has very, very high false negative rates because the tumor sizes in the lymph nodes are very small, way below the resolution of the PET-CT scanner. But the specificity is very high. So any active lymph node, even if the size on the CT is small, less than 1 centimeter, you can consider it to be positive for metastatic disease. Assessment of liver. FDG PET-CT has similar sensitivity for detection of liver metastasis like CT scan, but MRI continues to be the gold standard for evaluation of hepatic disease burden. FDG PET-CT is limited in evaluation of hepatic metastasis, number one, because the physiological uptake of FDG in the liver is pretty high. So lesions less than 1 centimeter are very difficult to detect on a routine PET-CT scan. Also, PET-CT acquisition is a prolonged acquisition. The patient is in a free breathing state, not in a breath hold state. So there is continuous movement of the liver because of the diaphragmatic movement, and there are a lot of blurring and truncation artifact in the liver area. So that can cause the sensitivity to drop a little when it comes to small tumor metastases. There is, however, a definite role in assessment of extrahepatic disease, where PET-CT shows superior sensitivity and accuracy than other imaging modalities. So when you want to stage the whole body for lung involvement, bone involvement, and very rarely the brain involvement, whole body PET-CT is the way to go. Here I have some pictures of what a PET-CT scan looks like. On the far right, you can see the normal distribution of FDG in the liver parenchyma. The CT is not showing any lesion anywhere, but you see the heterogeneous pattern of uptake. Here are some areas with the high uptake of tracer. Here are some areas with the low uptake of tracer. This heterogeneity is further amplified in a post-chemotherapy setting, where there are some treatment-related changes in the liver parenchyma, maybe some fatty infiltration or something like that. This slide shows the lung metastasis seen here on the CT, which is metabolically active on the PET scan, showing high-grade glucose metabolic activity. Here is a large hepatic met showing area, showing area of central necrosis, where you see absence of metabolic activity. So the PET-CT is useful in characterization intratumoral variation as well. We can see that this is the viable part of the tumor at the periphery, and this is a centrally necrotic acellular ametabolic part. So there have been some studies which have said that FDG PET-CT has led to change in therapeutic management of 20%. However, there was one very recent meta-analysis which has caused this change to drop down to 8%. Therefore, NCCN is still not allowing FDG PET CT to come into the picture in the management of metastatic colorectal carcinoma. It is not recommended in the initial staging. It is not recommended yet for progress during treatment, and it is not yet recommended during suspected recurrence because there is lack of proven superiority over CT or MRI. The only exception NCCN has said that if the patient for any reason cannot go a contrast CT or due to impaired renal function or allergy to iodinated contrast media, they can undergo a non-contrast enhanced PET CT. Also, another selective indication is in limited liver lesions to identify the occult disease anywhere else in the body. Coming into therapy response, CT uses the size criteria for assessment of response. That is the RACIST criteria. There has to be a drop of minimum 50% in the short axis diameter of the tumor for characterizing it as response. But in a therapeutic setting, there is always a pseudo progression in the form of tumor necrosis and some inflammatory reaction setting in, which causes temporary increase in the size of the lesion. PET CT, however, shows decrease in the metabolic activity, that is the glucose uptake, because cells are dying and the areas are necrosing. So as the SUV max is falling down, you can characterize the response using PET criteria. There are studies and a trial in which PET CT was useful to identify non-responders to chemotherapy right after one single dose of chemotherapy. This will help in tailoring therapy by identifying non-responders and switching them over to other lines of treatment or another drug. The delta SUV parameter is nothing but the change, that is the drop in the SUV max value in the pre and post therapy scan. It is not only useful in assessing response in the chemotherapy setting, but also in the liver directed settings like SIRT, radiofrequency ablation, and TACE therapies. This is a very new area in radiotherapy planning where metabolic activity of the tumor is used to guide the planning tumor volume prior to radiation therapy. This has shown to reduce inter-observer variability and enhances the standardization of the tumor volume marking. This will allow the radiation therapist to give higher dose to the area which is showing more metabolic activity and minimize the dose to surrounding tissues and non-tumor areas. In the restaging context, like Dr. Raj has already said, the first site of disease will be somewhere in the peritoneum or the liver. So the surgeon will first send for the conventional imaging like CT or MRI. So when these modalities show indeterminate lesions in the liver or they show a normal study, that is when PET CT comes in with a whole body picture, and it is useful for assessing the whole body for presence of extra abdominal metastasis in the lungs and skeletal system. In the follow-up setting, a prospective randomized trial has also shown that PET CT was able to detect recurrent disease earlier by at least 3 months compared to the conventional imaging modalities. Whether this will translate into better overall survival by application of radical treatments earlier in the course of the disease, this needs to be further determined. Now, this is a patient in the recurrence setting. She had a mildly elevated CEA level. You can see that there are some changes over here of liver resection surgery, and there is nothing in the abdomen. There is no hypermetabolic area in the abdomen, but you see this very low grade uptake in the thorax, which corresponds to a lung nodule in the right lower lobe. I have praised PET-CT enough, but it also has its own limitations. Metformin interference is a very big issue in assessment of colon because it causes mucosal uptake in the colonic and also the small intestinal areas. So we have to discontinue metformin 48 hours minimum prior to the evaluation. But this can lead to hyperglycemia, which is a contraindication for FDG PET-CT. So such patients, we have to first shift them to regular insulin and make sure that they are euglycemic and withhold the insulin 6 hours before doing a PET-CT scan. Also, false positive uptakes limit the specificity of the PET-CT because PET-CT, the FDG can get taken up by the inflammatory cells in chronic diverticular disease or inflammatory bowel disease. Also, lower sensitivity for liver lesions because of increased background activity in the physiological liver tissue, as well as respiratory movement causing artifacts and decreased diagnostic sensitivity. So these are the few limitations of PET-CT. Here you can see the patient on the left has all of this uptake in the colon. This uptake is metformin induced. You can also see a little bit of uptake in the small bowel. Here, after stopping metformin, the bowel activity has disappeared. Second part of my presentation goes back to conventional nuclear medicine. We are going to see the role of hepatobiliary scintigraphy to help the surgeon in the liver-directed therapies. Hepatobiliary scintigraphy is used for functional assessment of the future liver remnant where hepatic resection surgery is being considered. Hepatobiliary scintigraphy provides not only the global liver function, but also the regional segmental liver function. The commonly used radiopharmaceuticals are technetium, IDA derivatives, which is the mebrofenin, and the second one is the galactosyl serum albumin. Galactosyl serum albumin is only available in Japan. So I will be talking more on mebrofenin today. You have already known other lab methods, the MELD score, the Child-Pugh classification, and albumin bilirubin gradient. They tell us the global liver function. CT and MR volumetry is the preferred modality currently with cutoffs of 30% for non-compromised liver and 50% for compromised livers. How does hepatobiliary scintigraphy, how is it performed? A small amount of radioisotope technetium mebrofenin is injected intravenously and we take a dynamic image, that is a video of the liver for 5 minutes to calculate the uptake rate, how well the radiopharmaceutical is cleared from the blood circulation and taken up by the hepatocytes. This is followed by a fast SPECT, that is single photon emission computed tomography, in which we study the transaxial images of the liver, which will provide us the segmental liver uptake. And then the second dynamic study, that is the second video of the liver, is performed to see how well the hepatocytes are clearing the tracer from the liver. This is what it looks like. Here you can see the cardiac blood pool showing the mebrofenin in the circulation. After 1 minute, the liver has already started to clear the mebrofenin from the blood pool, and increasing activity in the liver with full clearance of the blood pool is seen within 6 minutes. This shows a very good mebrofenin uptake. There are certain cutoff values for this uptake rate. This uptake rate is normalized to the body surface area. Van de Graaff from Netherlands, their team has already studied this a lot, and they have come out with the cutoff value of 2.69% per minute per meter square is the cutoff for the mebrofenin uptake rate. If the value of the liver is above this, the rates of post resection liver failure is very low. Also, they have found that future remnant liver function is a better predictor than volumetry in prediction of post-operative liver failure. Also, some studies have been done whether hepatobiliary scintigraphy can predict enhancement of liver function prior to performing the portal vein embolization. Here, they have found that patients who have not received chemotherapy have the cutoff value of 1.72% per minute per meter square. And the patients who have received chemotherapy, they have a slightly higher cutoff value of 1.92. There are two limitations for performing the mebrofenin scan, which is hyperbilirubinemia, because mebrofenin and bilirubin compete with each other for hepatocellular uptake. Therefore, higher the bilirubin, poorer the hepatocellular uptake of mebrofenin. Also, albumin is required as a transporter for mebrofenin in the circulation. So in hypoalbuminemia, there can be falsely reduced hepatocellular uptake. Like I said, the other isotope, other radiopharmaceutical, the galactosyl serum albumin is available in Japan only. It binds to the acyloglycoprotein residues on the hepatocytes. As the hepatocellular function deteriorates, the affinity for these radiopharmaceutical decreases. The Japanese data has already shown that the liver uptake at 15 minutes correlated well with the ICG clearance at 15 minutes, which is the gold standard for them. Also, they have come with the predictive residual index cutoff of 0.4, which correlated with lesser incidence of post-operative failure in primary and metastatic liver tumors. Now, a few liver-directed therapies. These are therapies in which radioactive microspheres are administered intra-arterially directly into the metastatic liver lesions. The commonest ones which are used are the theraspheres and the SIR which are glass and resin microspheres respectively. Earlier, they were used only for the palliation setting in primary and secondary liver tumors. But now, CERT is also being considered as a first-line therapy to bring down the size downstage and make the liver regions more resectable and amenable to surgical therapy. Now, coming to the future of nuclear medicine in metastatic colorectal carcinoma. Now, we saw the limitations that PET cannot detect liver lesions which are smaller, but MRI is the gold standard. So the newer hybrid fusion modalities are fusing PET study with an MRI study, which will overcome the lack of sensitivity in smaller liver lesions, and we will get the best of both worlds. Also, there are newer PET tracers, the zirconium cetuximab, which specifically, excuse me, and the gallium FAPI, which is the fibroblast activation protein inhibitor. This tracer is very promising and it has already been used at All India Institute and Postgraduate Institute in India. And the tumor to background ratio is excellent because there is no physiological uptake of this particular compound in the liver. So this gives best possible staging in using PET-CT. Also, when I say radiotherapy planning, we have to target areas which are hypoxic. These tracers, the misonidazole and FASA and the copper ATSM PET CT, they target the hypoxic areas of the tumor. The more the hypoxia, the more radio resistant is the disease. So whichever areas are showing high uptake, that part of the tumor bed will require an additional boost of radiation in the therapeutic setting. Also, the most recent modality is the radio guided surgery, in which the intraoperative gamma probes tuned for picking up radioisotopes labeled with PET molecules like FDG to detect small and sub-centimeter size lesions in the liver or the lymph nodes. So these are the take-home messages. PET-CT is an emerging modality for initial staging to detect extrahepatic disease where there is high suspicion. It is useful in predicting early response to chemotherapy right after the first cycle itself and identifies non-responders early in the course of the treatment. It is a good modality to prognosticate by correlating the metabolic activity of the tumor with poor prognosis, and it is useful in the recurrent setting of rising CEA when conventional modalities are showing indeterminate lesions or show normal findings in the abdomen. Also, hepatobiliary scintigraphy outperforms CT volumetry in predicting liver cell failure after resection, and radioembolization can act as a bridge for surgery or transplant used in the first line setting. I thank you for your attention.